daylight in a pizza restaurant in DC?
No, because I'm not connected to what other people are saying on the internet. On any given day on the internet, people
So
are
you
saying,
absorb all responsibility when it goes out onto the internet?
I'm responsible for what I talk about and for what I say. I'm not responsible for what other people talk about.
You think you're one of the best journalists in the country?
On America? Oh, for sure. Yeah, for sure. But the people who are going to watch this on Vice or on HBO are not my people. So you guys could create this like caricature of a madman and a monster, and maybe 2 or 3 people who follow me on Twitter will like even watch it. So we live now in like parallel structures. Right now there's no shared set of facts in the country.
We wanted to know how polarizing America's media landscape has become. So we visited MIT's Media Lab, where Eugene Yee and his team analyzed millions of political tweets throughout the 2016 presidential campaigns.
So what are we actually seeing from this graph?
These are people on Twitter who are following each other. The red indicates the Trump supporters, the blue, the Clinton supporters, and then the green, Sanders supporters.
Each tiny dot represents a user tweeting about politics, with the fine lines showing shared Twitter connections between them, clustering them into tribal networks.
There's very few connections, as you see. It's very sparse. Trump supporters are connected and very tightly clustered into their own information world. Secondly, if you look at the pattern of how these Trump supporters use Twitter, they actually tweet 4 times more than the average Clinton supporter.
So did it not come as much of a surprise to you that Trump won with all this passion behind him here?
Well, more than the passion, I think seeing where the journalists are located in this network was way more indicative of some kind of missing feedback loop. What you see here blinking in blue are the verified journalists, and the yellow represent unverified journalists. And
so both the verified and the unverified journalists are all the way over here. There's no journalists connecting to the Trump supporters at all.
Isn't that very interesting?
So I mean, Trump has a real point when he says we're not listening to the people who really matter, because these people's views are not being represented.
At least on Twitter, we see that there is a separation of where the journalists and who the journalists are following, and no one is really listening or plugged into this Trump supporter graph. This suggests that we are missing fundamentally as a society some of the voices that led to Trump's success.
These voices included many formerly fringe bloggers and alt-right personalities who saw a golden opportunity to speak directly to Trump supporters and create a mass movement online to elect him as president.
All of these false attacks are absolutely beneficial. We're only bigger.
Social media feeds across the country were flooded with their pro-Trump messaging, along with highly targeted adverts, fueled by mass amounts of personal information mined from the internet. In the case of the Trump campaign, the controversial data targeting company Cambridge Analytica claimed to have been integral to Trump's victory, reportedly using an analytics technique called psychometrics.
We were able to use data to identify that there was very large quantities of persuadable voters there that could be influenced to vote for the Trump campaign.
Psychologist Mikhail Kaczynski is not affiliated with Cambridge Analytica, but he is an expert in the field of psychometrics.
Psychometrics aims at measuring psychological traits. A computer model, just by looking at the books you're reading, movies that you're watching, or websites that you're visiting, would be able to infer your political views with an accuracy that is not achievable to human judges.
Do you think that people realized at the time that their own digital footprint and that this big data was being used to actually target them with personalized adverts?
I think that people do not realize how much an algorithm can know about them. The same algorithm can also be used to reveal your intimate traits without your knowledge and without your consent, which clearly creates huge risks for the individuals and for the society as a whole.
While Cambridge Analytica has denied any wrongdoing, a UK regulatory authority has named them as part of a widespread investigation into the use of data analytics for political purposes in that country. Is there any proof at all of the effectiveness of psychometrics in the most recent election?
One of the pieces of evidence is to look at the amount of money that has been spent on it. Politicians, very much like companies, are rational beings, and they won't throw money at something that doesn't work.
Cambridge Analytica has since backtracked, claiming it never used psychometrics for the Trump campaign after all. But political campaigns around the world are pumping money into the use of big data for elections. In fact, one of Trump's top donors, billionaire computer scientist Robert Mercer, invested millions of dollars into Cambridge Analytica. Mercer did not respond to our requests for an interview, but we spoke with David Magaman, who was a key architect of Mercer's billion-dollar hedge fund algorithms for nearly 20 years.
Cambridge Analytica themselves have denied that they've really had much impact at all on the elections. Do you think that that could be the case?
I don't believe that's possible. Bob Mercer is a lot of things. One thing he is brilliant. If he invested the kind of money that he invested in Cambridge Analytica, and if he asked candidates that he wanted to win to use Cambridge Analytica, he's doing it because he knows it works.
Magaman is suing Mercer for wrongful termination, claiming he was fired for speaking to the press about Mercer's involvement with the Trump campaign. Mercer's attorney has described Magaman's allegations as meritless.
Wealthy people and businessmen have always given sizable donations to politicians and to political campaigns. What's so different about what Robert Mercer's done?
I think that there's a new wave of political donors that are buying overwhelming influence over the views of the people who they're supporting.
One of Mercer's key collaborators in obtaining that influence has been Trump's former chief strategist and executive chairman of Breitbart News, Steve Bannon. Bannon also formerly served as a vice president of Cambridge Analytica, and Mercer pumped millions into Breitbart News, which was used as a strategic pro-Trump tool during the election.
Bob Mercer saw, before most people, the impact that non-mainstream media could have on manipulating voters and on getting people to believe what he wanted them to believe.
And when the mainstream media began reporting on false information spread by these new alternative outlets, a war over facts arose between the two sides.
Look, alternative facts are not facts. They're falsehoods.
This has been fueled by the president's personal crusade against the traditional press.
Media outlets like CNN and MSNBC are fake news.
We now live in a world where any facts you disagree with can be labelled fake, leading to a record low of only 32% of the population now actually trusting the press.
No, not you. Not you. Your organization's terrible. Your organization's terrible. Let's go.
One of Trump's favorite targets on his war on mainstream media is CNN and their senior White House correspondent, Jim Acosta.
Aren't you concerned, sir, that you are undermining the people's faith in the First Amendment, freedom of the press, when you call stories you don't like fake news?
The public doesn't believe you people anymore. Now, maybe I had something to do with that. I don't know.
We spoke to Acosta about reporting on the White House in the fake news era.
Do you feel like this term fake news has been hijacked by the administration, has been jumped on?
It's being exploited, no question about it. They want to damage the credibility of news organizations that are reporting factual information about things that are going on here at this White House. And when he calls us fake news, okay, let's examine that. I'm not the one who said that Barack Obama wasn't born in the United States. That was fake news. The President of the United States did not have a larger inauguration crowd size than Barack Obama. President Trump said that Barack Obama was wiretapping him at Trump Tower. That's fake news. We're reporting on a president who has engaged time and again in his own version of fake news.
Why is it, do you think, that the American public is so divided right now and that there is so much trust in what the president says?
You know, I think that bitter partisanship is always going to exist in the United States.
The extreme left and right squaring off in bloody demonstrations in recent weeks.
These people, Antifa, are neo-communists, and they need to be rejected by the Democratic Party, just like Republicans have rejected the neo-Nazis.
Jews will not replace us!
The idea that a president of the United States cannot unambiguously denounce Nazism is extraordinary.
It's time to expose the crooked media deceptions and to challenge the media for their role in fomenting divisions.
The danger becomes when you have somebody in the Oval Office who is fomenting an atmosphere of division. What's at stake is we get to a point in this country where half of the country only believes something because the president says that's what the truth is. The president doesn't get to decide what the truth is.
In season 3, we covered